Since the harbor was unsuitable to winter in, the majority decided that we should sail on. Winter at harbor unsuitable. The majority decided we should sail on, hoping to reach Phoenix and winter there. This was a harbor in Crete, facing both southwest and northwest. So they couldn't harbor and stay in Crete in the harbor. So they went to Phoenix, Phoenix, Arizona, in Crete, hoping to reach Phoenix and winter there. This was a harbor in Crete, facing both southwest and northwest. When a gentle south wind began to blow, they saw their opportunity, so they weighed anchor and sailed along the shore of Crete. Gentle south wind began to come, so they dropped anchor at the shore of Crete. There was no sun, no stars for many days. A tempestuous wind called Euroclydon. Acts 27:14. Before very long, a wind of hurricane force called the Northeaster swept down from the island. The ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind. So we gave into it and were driven along, running along the lee of a small island called Cauda. They ran along the small lee of Cauda. So from the island, there was a northeaster of hurricane force. The ship could not head into the wind. They were driven along the lee of a small island called Cauda. Sorry, the pages are backwards. We were hardly able to keep the lifeboat secure, so the men hoisted it aboard. Then they passed ropes under the ship itself to hold it together. They lowered the ship's anchor and let the ship be driven along. Passed ropes under the ship to hold it together. They hoisted the lifeboat aboard. We took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. Took such a violent battering from the storm, threw down the tackle, that they threw the cargo overboard to lighten it up, I guess. On the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands. When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and the storm continued raging, we finally gave up all hope of being saved. There's no stars, no sun, just the storm, no hope of being saved. They left the harbor. Third day, threw ship's tackle overboard. So, threw cargo overboard, brought up the lifeboat, roped everything up, threw off tackle, cargo. Acts 27:27. After they had gone a long time without food, Paul stood up before them and said, "Men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete. Then you would have spared yourself this damage and loss. But now I urge you to keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost, only the ship will be destroyed. Last night an angel of the Lord, to whom I belong and to whom I serve, stood beside me and said, 'Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you.'" Okay, Paul tells the crew, "Take heart. The ship will be destroyed, but not one person will be lost. An angel came to me and told me that." So keep up your courage, men, for I have faith in God that it will happen just as he told me. Nevertheless, we must run aground on some island. Acts 27:27. On the 14th night, We were still being driven across the Adriatic Sea when about midnight the sailors sensed that we were approaching land. They took soundings and found that the water was 120 feet deep. A short time later, they took soundings again and found it was 90 feet deep. Fearing that we would be dashed against the rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for daylight. Here, there. They feared that they would be dashed against the rocks. Here's the rocks. They dropped anchors and prayed for daylight. So they did a first record of soundings for 20 fathoms, 120 feet deep. Second record was 15 fathoms, 90 feet. Paul said, "Take heart, be encouraged." Take heart. At midnight, the sailors sensed they were approaching land. They had a sense we're approaching land. Let's do a little bit more. Acts 27:30. In an attempt to escape from the ship, the sailors let the lifeboat down into the sea, pretending they were going to lower some anchors from the bow. Then Paul said to the centurions and soldiers, "Unless these men stay with the ship, you cannot be saved." Stay with the ship, says the centurion. Everybody stay together. Unless these men stay with the ship, you cannot be saved. We want to escape. They were getting the lifeboats. We need to get lifeboats from Titanic. Take a video. So the soldiers cut the ropes that held the lifeboat and let it drift away. Oh no, lifeboats drifted away, moved away. They cut the ropes. Just before Paul urged them to eat. Just before dawn, Paul urged them to eat. For the last 14 days, he said, you have been in constant suspense and have gone without food. You haven't eaten anything. Now I urge you to take some food. You need it to survive. Not one of you will lose a single hair from his head. Nobody will lose a hair from their head. Not a hair shall fall. After he said this, he took some bread and gave thanks to God in front of them all. Then he broke it and began to eat. They were all encouraged and ate some food for themselves. Although altogether there were 276 of us on board. When they had eaten as much as they wanted, they lightened the ship by throwing the grain into the sea. Almost dawn, he prayed, Amen, and said, Eat, it's been 14 days. They threw out the wheat when they were done. There were 276 people.